Welcome to the Sales Pulse podcast. I'm Marla Koupal, your sales conversation architect. Over the last 2 weeks, we talked about how to remain calm in sales conversations and how to use neutral to make your sales conversation very effective. Yes, neutral, that's a behavior for you to exhibit, use, and strategize throughout a conversation. So we don't want to be sellers who rush, react, or try to manage a call. We want to be a seller who can flow with the conversation and make it more effective than any practiced. Today I was inspired by a blog I read by Seth Godin. The podcast is called, "Are You Terrible at Sales? Good. Now what?" He was talking about things that he has seen in his field of business and coaching. But I also could see the similarities to what I see with my coaching clients. And the idea was a very simple one. Most of us are terrible at some things, and we let those things hold us back. My clients are great people. They're not bad. They're not lazy. They're very insightful. Yet, they're just genuinely not good at certain tasks about selling, like follow-up or like handling conflict. They would prefer to avoid it. Or if they're joining what they feel is a high-stakes conversation, they get the heebie-jeebies. And lastly, it might be sitting in a sales conversation with a lot of uncertainty. They're unable to stop filling the conversation with their incessant chatter and patois and their scripts. So let's get your perspective shifted and your skills shifted so that you are not terrible at some of those aspects of selling. Sales conversations and activities let you get away with a lot of these behaviors and perspectives, but only for a while. Only while maybe you're just cutting your teeth on selling. There's no immediate punishment for doing some of those things I mentioned. But if you're going into every conversation terrified or thinking you are awkward, it's not going to serve you long term. You get a beginner's grace period, yes. You can talk your way around your inability to listen to others. You might overcompensate for your discomfort with extra enthusiasm. That can be controlled. And you can find poor follow-up practices behind your busyness. And then there's one day shows up, you just can't do those things anymore. It's time to take an inventory and understand what it is you want to shift. In sales, being awkward, boorish, or just overall terrible barely looks dramatic, but it does look subtle. And it looks like conversations that never quite make it. They never quite warm up and get going. It looks like buyers who go quiet. And it looks like opportunities that feel promising that seem to slowly evaporate. So what Seth was pointing out today, and this is the part that matters to all of you, is that once you realize where you are terrible, you actually have choices. You then put that effort into becoming not terrible. Sounds obvious, right? But how many of us avoid that? You're not going for exceptional. You're not even going for world class. But you do want to go for conversations in which you do not leave damage to your buyers. The smartest and most honest move, and this one is wildly underused, is to personally call out your issues, call out your terribles, call out your fears, and then set expectations to correct. Don't blame the buyer for not understanding you. It's our job to understand them. What we're talking about here is growing your self-management awareness. So you might take an inventory. I seem to do better when I slow conversations down and then finish the sentence. See what you're doing that can work. Are you doing it consistently? Or I'm usually not great at thinking while I talk, so let me ask some questions to get the buyer involved and let them know me, or you might have seen somebody else use a lot of open-ended questions, and you become aware that you're not using those open-ended questions in your conversations. Do you know how to use them so that you're not becoming an interrogator and someone who never then can move the conversation forward? All of these are aspects of self-awareness that in sales are very, very critical for you to move forward. So that kind of self-honesty and intentional action will create more trust within yourself, and therefore trust is easier to build with others and those buyers that you'd like to have. These active thoughts and reflections build the foundation for your sales success. And this is where sales gets uncomfortable for most people. First, they need to accept the conversation and stop trying to fit some narrative that someone told them always works. Secondly, you need to make promises to follow up that you will follow up, whether that's more information or you reconnect at a later time, or you just keep your promise. That's all it's about. Keep the promises. Make small promises. Step into it gradually. And you need to quit beating yourself up. How many of you walk away and go, oh, that didn't work? Sales are not immediate. Sales are acquired through multiple conversations. And we're talking about building an interaction that sustains itself until the next interaction. This is what you want to observe. So you have to watch, what are my expectations and are they even appropriate for what I'm doing? Each of these are not skill issues. They are self-awareness issues. So this is where your credibility erodes without anyone needing to say a word. You're tearing yourself down. The buyer does not and will not confront you. They simply stop engaging with you. They ignore you and they even run away. Most sellers don't lose deals because they lack the product or service knowledge, or even the motivation to make the sale. They lose the deals because they reacted to the buyer instead of noticing the distinctions the buyer was making. Each buyer is unique. And you let your little voice inside tell you all the things you were terrible at, so you automatically had debris on the playing field. You might have rushed the sales conversation instead of regulating the pace and matching the buyer's energy and focus. You might have filled the space with words instead of listening to the person who will ultimately choose to buy. You maybe don't use those little pregnant pauses before you respond or ask the next question. And my focus on improving your selling fluency is subtle. It is never the same coaching for each person. It's about helping each one of you recognize where you need structure, where you need support, and where you need to stop pretending. Being terrible in sales is not your problem. Being unaware of what to shift or change is. So here's the question I'm leaving you with today. What part of selling are you quietly terrible at? And what choice are you making about it? Are you acting on it, or are you letting it just be your problem? You're carrying it around like extra baggage. Pretending is always the most expensive option. So stop and connect soon. If this conversation made you pause or recognize yourself somewhere in it, wonderful. That is awareness doing its job. If you want more conversations like this about selling without pressure, staying calm while uncertain, and building real skill instead of relying on tactics, make sure you subscribe and follow. You can find the Sales Pulse podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. Wherever you listen, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. These conversations build on each other, and they are meant to be practiced, not just heard. Thanks for spending your time with me today.